Yes, we're live. Okay, hi.
Hi.
StreamYard tells me it's showtime, which
Ooh.
welcome people who are here or watching back. Thank you so much if you're
Hello.
watching back as well. We are here to discuss for the Thomas Hardy Readalong our summer pick, which is the Woodlanders. Oh gosh, I love your edition. That is so cute.
I know, I love it so much. I was very lucky to find it, for sure.
You have done some annotating. Oh
Oh,
my
I have.
gosh.
I mean, you can definitely see at what point I started listening to the audiobook because it's like suddenly there's no notes whatsoever.
I,
But that's fine.
I gave up. I was like, you know what? I'm going to audiobook this because just
That's fine. That sounds good. Yeah, I
yeah.
recommend.
Yeah, sometimes it just works better for your brain.
That's true.
I just couldn't sit still, so I listened to the audiobook of this one, which I think this is not a very difficult book, so it works. I think,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Definitely.
If you've also read the Woodlanders with us or previously, let us know you're here. Let us know your thoughts. We will be starting for sure in a little bit. We have some spoiler-free things, so I will give you a warning when we get into spoilers. Although is that really a big thing in this book? I don't know. We'll discuss that in the spoilery section.
Yeah, I think it's safer.
Yeah, but how did your reading go of this book? Like, what was your reading experience like?
How did it go? So I read a little bit during our first reading sprints, which were when? Last week? I don't remember.
No, I think like 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, sure. So then I read a few chapters and then I didn't read anything for the next 2 weeks. And then I read the whole book in like 2 days. So I finished it this morning. I kind of binged it. And I have a lot of thoughts going on at the same time. I'm still not sure how I feel about certain events in the book, which I'm
Ooh.
sure we'll discuss. Um, but I do love the themes. I kind of sense that Thomas Hardy always kind of explores the same things, but it's just in a different manner depending on the story and the characters. But I like seeing that. And overall, I would say I liked it. I think the audiobook definitely helped. But overall, I enjoyed the story. I feel like I love the themes more than the story itself. But upon thinking about it, I really liked it overall. So I don't have a rating exactly. I would say maybe 3.5. I definitely enjoyed this one more than Jude. I can say that.
Oh yeah, I
Um,
think that's very easy to like
yeah,
this over Jude.
yes, definitely. So yeah, maybe this discussion will help me figure out how I feel about certain things, especially the ending. I would say that's the main thing that I'm like, I don't know, we'll see. But overall, I really like the little details that he inserted in the story that seemed irrelevant, but then in the end, they actually had a lot of importance to the characters and how their story ended up being. So overall, it was a pleasant reading experience. I'm glad I read this one, which I feel like is a bit underrated. So it's good that we read it, I think. Yeah.
I
That's it.
agree because I knew the Woodlanders was like a book by Thomas Hardy that I've seen people read during Victober, but I don't really hear anyone rave about. So I was
Mm-hmm.
apprehensive to pick this one, but I wanted another book that neither of us had read. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad I did. First of all, it's like short. It's like
Mm.
so much easier to read than especially Jude. But also I think it has similar themes as Tess, similar characters. Like this, I emotionally survived. Tess, I did not. So it's just a really pleasant Thomas Hardy book. And I agree with you about the themes, very similar to
Mm-hmm.
his other works, which we will get into later in the
Mm-hmm.
spoilery section. But I also, while I liked it, I also found it maybe underwhelming compared to some of his other books,
Mm.
which may have been the reason that I decided to eventually just switch to the audiobook and
Mm.
start an embroidery project because
Oh.
I kind of felt like I couldn't bring up the concentration to read this physically. And I read
Mm-hmm.
it over a week listening to it mostly.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Hmm.
I you sound more positive, but I'm going to give it a higher rating. But that's just a difference in our personality, I think, or in the way that we
Interesting.
rate things. Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
it's a 4, which is just a solid book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds
But yeah, I
fair.
also preferred it over Jude.
Okay, good. So we have a positive balance overall. That's good.
Yeah, although I think Jude may have been a more brave and developed book, I think.
Hmm. Interesting. That's one of the things that I actually want to discuss in the spoiler section.
Okay,
Um, we'll see. Yeah.
we'll see. Okay, I am doing a lot of clicking. Okay, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Chris. Hi. Hi, Martin. Thank you so much for
Hello.
being here.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I think we're going to head into the spoiler section now. And
Hmm.
I made up some few questions last minute. So I
Oh,
hope,
interesting.
yeah, I also finished it this morning because
Wow.
Mary and
That's
I,
new.
we were DMing and I said like, yeah, we take whole seasons for these books, but we all read them in a few days. It's like, why even take whole seasons? Why not just say last week of September, last week of April?
That's true. Listen, what matters is that we finish them. That's okay. It's
And
fine.
we definitely wouldn't do that without these live shows.
No, definitely not.
So thank you so much for letting us do this on YouTube.
What a privilege,
I
seriously.
know, yeah. All right, our first
Oh.
question. If you know Thomas Hardy, the plot of this book can be a bit predictable. Did
Hmm.
you enjoy that, or would you have liked more originality in the plot?
Hmm.
I think you kind of already mentioned this, that there were some similarities with other
Hmm.
Thomas Hardy things, but you said you enjoyed it.
No, I did enjoy it because I feel like the themes are very similar, but the way he discusses them is a bit different. I You mentioned some similarities to Tess, and I definitely agree. Um, on this one, the only thing that I didn't find fully predictable was the ending, because I wasn't sure. Not that we are in full spoiler section here.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Like when Giles died, I was not sure where we were gonna go from there. I figured, okay, now maybe the doctor whose name I always forget. Hold on, what's his name? Fitzpiers, sure. Will almost will almost for sure try to pursue Grace again. Although, because it was still a very messy situation, with her father and Mrs. Charmond and Marty all at the same time, I was like, where is this going? And the fact that they decided to give their relationship a second chance was slightly surprising to me, and that's a little bit that I'm not sure I fully like. Because on one hand, they are kind of stuck in this situation, but not really, because if he wanted, he could give her the chance to maybe file for divorce, which I'm not sure is the right name at the time, but some similar thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was the only thing that I didn't exactly know what to expect, and it ended up surprising me a little bit. Not sure if it was for a good reason. I'm still a bit conflicted about that. But overall, yes, it was a bit predictable. He discusses education a lot, but that's always my favorite part, personally. I love what it does with the story, and nature as well, of course, its relationship with,
Yes.
people's roots, which I always love. So I didn't mind the predictability aspect too much. It's more so the ending that I didn't really see coming necessarily, and I'm still a bit conflicted about it. What about you?
I think I enjoyed it because
Mm-hmm.
everything has consequences that you can kind of predict if you read like Tess and probably Jude as well, really. It's very easy to predict that she wants a higher class, and when she does that, when she's greedy or when the character is greedy, the price they pay is love, which I think with her father as well, which really felt predictable to me because I know that's the kind of lessons that Thomas Hardy wants to put in his books. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that she eventually didn't get love because characters are always punished for greed in Thomas
Mm-hmm.
Hardy's his books.
Yes.
So that she didn't get Giles, that he died, but that she went back, I think, to Fitzpiers, which why that name, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, I did find that predictable because without giving spoilers for other books, it's what a lot of
Mm-hmm.
women do in the end. Um, because they've made some mistakes, they've paid for that, and they see it as their only way out. But what
Mm-hmm.
I did find surprising is that she actually did it out of love, and that she did feel some sort of love and connection for him, and that she didn't do it because she felt she had to.
Yeah, maybe that's what I found unpredictable, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because then again, obviously considering the situation, they didn't have a lot of choices when it comes to their relationship, I guess. And I was like, okay, she's trying to come back to him. What can be the reason? And you mentioned greed a lot, and I sort of agree, and I think it ties back with the education theme, which we can get into later. Um, and then I question, like, is it love though? I'm not sure if that is. I'm not sure if any characters at any point were actually like in love with each other. I do feel Giles felt love for Grace, but at the same time, wasn't it more of an admiration more than love? I guess I never felt that
Mm-hmm.
any of the couples were really in love, except for Marty when it
Yeah, I
comes to
just wanted to
Giles.
say, yeah,
Yeah, which I love her, and she barely is
I
in the
know.
story, I know, but but I love her so much. And that last scene at Giles' grave was heartbreaking. I don't know, that scene really spoke to me. And then again, the small thing that she does at the start of the novel, she cuts her hair, which sounds like such a small thing, but then it kind of has big consequences. Um, and I really love her. I feel like she's a background character, but she's maybe the true heroine of the novel, which is very interesting to me.
I mean,
Um,
she's Tess in a way, isn't she?
yeah, in a way,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, not fully, luckily for her, but like
No, Jesus. Yeah.
just as for Marty, I feel like I
I
expected her
know.
to be a bigger part of the book, and when she wasn't, it's like, excuse me, Thomas Hardy.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. I know. I wish we had more of her. I think that's my biggest complaint,
yeah,
I feel like, because I really cared for her. But yeah.
yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Me too. And I felt like this book is quite short for an average Thomas Hardy, so maybe he was
Hmm.
planning to add her more, but wanted to write a shorter story. I don't know. It kind of felt
Maybe.
that way to me. Like this book is felt definitely shorter
Mm,
than his average novels.
yeah.
And you just said nature. And I thought, okay, so Mr. Melbury, he is a
Mm,
timber merchant, which is
yes.
kind of defiling nature,
Hmm. Hmm.
cutting down trees. And I feel
Hmm.
like what he tries to do with his daughter as well is defiling nature in the way of class, if you can see that as nature, which I think Victorians did.
Hmm.
And I find his character fascinating as well,
Mm.
which hops on to the second question. Do you
Ooh.
think anything in this book would have happened if it wasn't for Mr. Melbury?
Ooh, that's a big question, right? Because that also starts with him, wanting to give Grace a better education, I guess, because he didn't feel like his roots were enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then again, it ties in with the nature, both nature literally,
Wait,
but
is it,
also, oh, sorry,
was it my internet or yours?
I don't know.
Okay,
Can you
just
hear me
keep on
now?
going.
Oh, it happens. This is bound to happen in live shows. We all know this. It's fine.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, it comes to then again realizing that maybe his nature is not enough. And I do think it is beautiful that we are talking both literally, but then his connection to the nature.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he probably wanted to provide her with a better education, a better possible future, better prospects, whatever that means, because maybe it wasn't really what was best for her. um, so do you think anything in this book would have happened? Probably not in the same way, no, because I feel like one of the reasons why Grace didn't want to be with Giles, or at least didn't want to admit it to herself, was because of that precisely. Education and, her knowledge compared to his presented as a big barrier between both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why they didn't end up together in the first place. So something would have happened, but not this, I would say, for
Yeah.
sure.
I
Yeah.
kind of feel like Mr. Marbury wasn't actually a character that we got to know very well,
Mm-hmm.
him as a person. But he started it all with like stealing the lover of Mr. Winterbourne Sr.,
Mm-hmm.
which is the reason that Grace is alive. With
Mm-hmm.
him doing something that he feels guilt over, that feels immoral to him. And
Mm-hmm.
then he wants to raise her to a higher station, which felt like a classic projection of parents towards their
Definitely.
children to me,
Yeah.
because I think like he wanted to live through Grace, and he even says at points, "You don't have to recognize me in public. you don't have to speak to me in public if you
Mhm.
marry above your station, which I found so shocking
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
strange for him to say.
And
But
sad,
then
honestly. Yeah.
I
Mm.
feel like he makes choices for all the young people.
Mm.
Like if like first of all feeling that guilt and being like, okay, Grace should marry Giles, and then later inviting them to his home.
Hmm.
Of course, the doctor. I'm gonna call him the doctor because I cannot with that name.
I know it's
And
easier.
then deciding that they should get married, and then just everything happens because of the decisions that he makes.
Hmm.
And I feel
Hmm.
like we could have seen the characters in a natural flow if it wasn't for him. I
Mm.
wonder, like, if you would make a little change in this book, and the mom would have survived, and he didn't. Like, what kind of book do we
Oh,
have? What kind of story?
interesting. I'm not sure because I wonder if the mom wouldn't have wanted to honor her husband's wishes. So I'm not sure, but that's an interesting thing to consider. Definitely. Um, I was seeing this comment, which is true. Like he changed his mind about things all the time. Um, I feel like that's true because he was trying his best, I guess, and when things didn't have the outcome that he was expecting, like with Grace and the doctor, for instance, their marriage, and he was expecting Grace to probably be happier, and that was not happening. And he was like, "Oh, I thought this was what was best for my daughter. Why
Mhm.
isn't she happy? What's happening? That's not working. Let's change everything again." So I feel like I don't know. It's a very funny character in a way
Yes,
because
yeah.
he's just he just seems desperate, but that's also affecting a lot of people around him. So it's like, sir, drink a cup of tea. It's okay. It's okay. Let things take their natural course, which is funny because with nature being a major theme here, no
Hmm.
one seems to be kind of respecting the natural cause of things and their natural, genuine feelings. Everyone seems to be kind of running away from them for, expectations, I guess, which is
Hmm.
also another thing that's usually explored, especially in Victorian novels, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that makes sense. But yeah, it's funny to me how he kept changing his mind all the time. He definitely was. Yeah.
especially how the narrator made quite clear that Mr. Melbury was not very smart and not as eloquent as his daughter, but he is the one with the chessboard, and he's very bad at playing chess. Um, he is adorable, but
Yeah.
there also were moments where I felt uncomfortable with how much he was involved in the
Hmm.
decisions that Grace made,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, which I sometimes felt like was too much and was too close.
Yeah, definitely. He was a bit pushy. And then again, I feel like it's because he maybe regretted his decisions and then tried to make things right, but he didn't really consider the space that he had to give his daughter mainly. He didn't really do that. So, yeah, it was a bit too much sometimes, definitely.
What do we think about this comment? Was he a true Don Juan?
Oh God, I that's true. He's a walking red flag. I feel like in some scenes, I mean,
Yeah,
um, maybe he would appreciate the concept of an open relationship, which maybe at the time was not really possible. Who knows? But yeah, considering the circumstances, he was terrible, a terrible husband. I feel like we can
yeah.
all agree on that. So
There
yeah.
is a husband in Far From the Many Crowd that I felt like, oh, we have recycled a man in a Victorian novel.
Oh
Which
no.
I don't know who he wrote earlier, but felt very
Hmm.
familiar.
I don't know.
And also a bit of a Jane Austen, Mr. Wickham, I feel like.
True. That's right. Hmm. Funny.
Right. Okay, I actually don't really remember what I wanted to say about this, but I'll try. How does this book discuss the concept of responsibility and how does it relate to class? And my first thing that I thought of was with Giles and the lady who is called Felice Charmant,
Oh. Hmm.
with the fact that she doesn't at all see her responsibility that she has inherited through her late husband, I believe,
Mm.
towards the tenants, and that he
Mm.
loses his home.
Yeah.
And I think we see it again with the doctor and his responsibility towards Grace. And of
Mm.
course, majorly with what we just discussed with the father and the daughter. But that, I
Mm.
mean, it relates to class as well, that he wants to elevate her class.
Yeah.
But that class is more important than love, which I feel like is such a classic Thomas Hardy theme.
Mm.
In
Yeah.
Jude as well. It's a really big
True.
theme.
That's very true. Yeah. And I find it interesting that both Giles and Marty lost their home at the same time because of the same event.
Mm-hmm.
So it just shows that, they probably should have ended up together from the start because they're so connected in, values and knowledge and roots and everything. So I find it beautiful and tragic, obviously, that that happened to both of them. And then considering the end. But yeah, about Miss Charmant, I feel like she was just trying to have fun and not really considering anyone else's feelings, which it's not good. So
No,
um, yeah, yeah,
I definitely feel like she didn't understand the fact that she had certain responsibilities because later about Giles she said, "Oh, why couldn't he keep his home? That would have been very easy." While she
mm,
was the one who didn't like take her responsibility and made sure that that happened. And I
mm-hmm.
definitely feel like that is Thomas Hardy saying that those kind of privileges and
Yeah,
responsibilities should not be inherited through
yeah,
family bonds.
yeah, exactly. Which I feel like Thomas Hardy always does this. I'm not sure if he was like, I don't know a lot about him as a person, but
Mm-hmm.
whenever I read his book, especially the way he talks about country people, let's say, and the way of living in the countryside, I'm not sure if he feels a bit jealous of them. Um, what I mean is that the more knowledge you have, I guess, and the more educated, the more privileged in a way that you are, it feels like you lose touch with the simple things in life, such as empathy and respect. And obviously, this is generalizing, but I feel like it really creates a distance between you as the knowledgeable person and you as a human being. It feels like the more you know about the world in general, the less you know about the earth and its people, I guess. And he always talked with a lot of tenderness and care, I guess, about people who do live in the countryside and how they should be maybe more valued. Um, so I just find that interesting. I'm not sure if he had any relationship with that in his life or not, but he always seemed to be very melancholic towards it in the sense that,
Yeah,
right, in the sense that he wished he maybe was more like one of those people, just more in touch with life in general and the simple things. Yeah.
it does feel like he says that position, money, and education corrupts people.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, it definitely corrupts his characters.
Oh, definitely. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going in my mind through all the characters,
Mm-hmm.
especially like Jude that we discussed last time and his journey with education. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really big part with corruption as well. Talking about Jude, yes, I have another Jude question.
Oh.
How is marriage discussed in a similar or different way compared to Jude the Obscure? And we will maybe get into spoilers for Jude, so maybe mute us for a second if you haven't read Jude, because we have read it with the Thomas Hardy read-along. So I do want to like open it up for discussion for people who have been following us,
Hmm.
because I feel like once again Thomas Hardy is quite sassy on the bonds of marriage and very explicitly in this book he
Hmm.
says I think he pleads for divorce, and which
Oh
he
yeah.
also did in Jude, of course. So to me that felt like a
Mm-hmm.
similarity. Was there anything that
Mm-hmm.
really jumped out to you?
I wasn't thinking about comparing it to Jude as much, but I can try to come up with something. But I did find it interesting that this book did discuss the appearance of a law that allowed the husband and wife to not be that anymore, and then it was kind of heartbreaking to know that Grace wasn't allowed to proceed with that because her husband wasn't like, what was the sentence? He didn't commit enough mistakes or something. I don't remember the scene exactly, but he said something like, "Oh, he wasn't bad enough to you in order for it to be valid for you to get divorced."
Yeah.
Um, I remember reading it and being like, "Oh God, how, how, what is enough?"
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when it comes to comparing it with Jude, I would have to think a bit more about that. Obviously, the relationships are all very messy and
Yeah.
very, very wrong. But did you think about anything in particular that you would like to say, like since you mentioned it?
Well, I think especially the ending with Grace
Mm,
and the doctor, that she did choose her marriage, and that in the end maybe it was good for her that the marriage didn't get dissolved, and
mm,
that she was able to go to her place when he had his new practice that she had envisioned, and that it actually really matched with what she had hoped for her life, and
mm,
that maybe she doesn't love him in a very romantic way, but I felt like there was a promise of her starting to love a new life.
mm.
And none of those beautiful things were ever given to anyone in Jude.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
so to
Mm,
me, it felt like a more hopeful book when it comes to marriage.
mm.
When it, like with Jude, I felt like this is like people don't get married. um,
Yeah, that's true.
and
That's
this
very
book
true.
definitely felt more hopeful,
Mm,
but also how foolish people can be.
yeah,
Um,
I guess it does feel more hopeful. Um, because I mean, in the end, they do decide to give their relationship a second chance, right? Without knowing if it's going to work or not. And I wonder what does happen for them. Like, I wonder what their life together again looks like, because
yeah,
I'm honestly not sure. And the fact that she in I mean, practically, she doesn't really have the option to separate from the doctor if she wants, because he would have to do it, and I'm not sure he would ever do that for her. So I don't know. It feels like they're still trapped, but they're just accepting the fact that they are kind of trapped and trying to give it a second chance, see if it works or not. So it's definitely more hopeful in a way, but it doesn't seem fully healthy to me on the other. That's why I'm
yeah.
always a bit conflicted about the ending, but I don't know.
But I think why it to me felt more hopeful mainly is because the characters in this book seem to love themselves. And I
Mm,
felt there was such a destructive hate, feelings of hate towards yourself. In
mm.
especially, oh gosh, I forgot her name, but the main female character in Jude, she had such,
Was it
uh,
Sarah? No,
no,
not
I
Sarah.
don't remember, but she had such negative feelings towards herself.
Mm,
Uh, and that holds really close to religion as well, I think, in her case. And in
mm,
this book, I just kind of felt like these people liked themselves, which
mm.
I found quite a unique thing in the Thomas Hardy book. But I felt like he was in a good mood when he wrote this.
Good. Maybe he was recently married and it was going well. I don't know. I don't know.
And I do know that he married twice, but his second
Didn't
marriage was
he?
quite
Yeah, me
late in
too.
life.
Mm,
But I mean, it's
yeah.
strange probably that I don't know when he wrote this actually.
Yeah, I feel like that would give a lot of context for sure. Knowing a bit more about his biography, I definitely need to do some research
You know,
on
when
that.
it comes to looking up things about male authors, I kind of prefer to do that after I finish the books because it's
Mm.
like, especially with things like Charles Dickens, like he was a misogynist who had 10 children with his wife and then tried to have her committed so that he could marry
Oh,
again. And I was like, I kind of want to know that. I
oh
want to
no.
enjoy reading Great Expectations and
Yeah.
not drink matcha every day.
Stop. Inside joke. Anyway. Um,
Love almost always loses out to class, doesn't it? I mean, in a bit of a dramatic novel, it definitely does.
mm, it's kind of sad because I feel like you were saying that characters love themselves, and I hope so. I definitely feel more that in this novel for sure than in Jude, for instance.
Mhm.
Definitely. But I also found it interesting because I feel like Grace was going through a very like a big conflict within herself because of her education precisely because some people, I looked up a few reviews, and some people were saying that she kind of looks down on Giles at
Mhm.
first. I'm not sure if that's entirely true. I feel like she just feels very out of place suddenly because she doesn't
Yeah.
feel home in her own home. It doesn't feel like home anymore, which is kind of sad. But I feel like she's learning to kind of accept it and learn that sure she has a different baggage, I guess, than Giles, which is not better or worse. It's just it is what it is, and that conflict was very interesting to me as well. So I hope in the end she did love herself fully. Um, but yeah, at least there was that self doubt a little bit. At least I felt it in the start of the book, I would say. Um,
Yeah. Oh, wait. Then, because you were talking about it, did you think
oh,
of Grace as the villain or great love in Giles' story?
oh God. Villain or great love. I love that those are very like two polar opposites, or maybe not. Great love. I mean, maybe in his perspective, I'm not sure she
Yeah.
loved him like that. Yeah, but villain. I mean, if she was, I don't think it was on purpose. She was just, I don't know, maybe confused. I guess I would. I'm not sure if she's either of those things. Um, but in the end, she kind of was, wasn't she? It's kind of
I mean,
sad.
she is the
Yeah,
reason that he wasn't together with
yeah,
Marty.
yeah, exactly. And she, I mean, no, I, I was gonna be very mean. She's not the reason why he died, but there were
Wow,
no,
Mary. She's not
no,
the villain, but
wasn't.
she's the reason he died.
She wasn't. Oh God, I feel so sorry for her. She wasn't, but the circumstances. I guess she played a part in it, kind of, but not really. Poor Grace. No, let's not say that. Um, so, I guess in his perspective, she was his great love because also he didn't have the opportunity to explore that with Marty, which I still think they would have made an adorable couple. I hope so.
Yeah,
But
and I thought that's how the story would go.
yeah,
I thought he would let go of Grace
mm,
and get together with Marty, but then this is a Thomas Hardy novel, so of course
exactly.
it doesn't happen. We're not reading Jane Austen here.
Exactly. Yeah, you cannot really expect the right couple to be formed and happy, I guess.
No.
Um, yeah, but I wouldn't call her a villain either. I guess I don't know. I wouldn't say that. She just made the wrong choice, I guess. But even if they ended up together, it wouldn't work, in my opinion. So yeah, it's. I love this question, but I don't think she is either of those things. I guess.
No, I would
Um,
agree.
hmm Yeah.
I also think that he had an image of Grace that wasn't really the
Yeah.
same as who she was, and the
Yeah.
fact that he clung to her the way he did, I think made her a villain because he never really found the love he could have had. But that's
Yeah.
more on him than on her.
Exactly.
I think
Mm.
because like their marriage or supposed marriage was arranged by her father, not because she showed any interest. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he fabricated this whole love and life for them didn't really have anything to do with her.
Yeah, I feel like he looked at her with a very nostalgic look. It's his childhood friend or maybe sweetheart. I'm not sure if they were sweethearts or not, but anyway, they were
Mm.
close. And so I guess
Yeah,
he still has that image of her, which is not the same anymore. But it's like you said, that's on him. So if
yeah,
she is anything, it is from his perspective. I don't think she
yeah.
did anything, at least on purpose, to deceive him or harm him. I wouldn't say she did that. So, yeah.
I completely forgot this. Remember, however, she ripped out Marty's graffiti and
Yeah.
declared her love for Giles, though he didn't see it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I forgot about that. And that was the reason why I thought that Marty would be like a much bigger part of the book. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I wish she was. I guess she kind of is, just in a very, very discreet manner. She's just
yeah.
there in the background. Yeah, that's true. Mm.
Okay, talking about Marty. Oh my gosh, the way I'm connecting these questions to our conversation, I'm so proud of
Everything's
myself.
connected.
I mean, okay, what was the underlying meaning of Marty's hair? Because
Ooh,
you mentioned me, yeah,
you.
mentioned that she had like her Joe March moment, and then
Yes.
it turned out to be so much more. Is there something you wanted to say about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I just find it both funny and kind of sad that I feel like she valued her hair a lot, at least at the start, because it made her beautiful and maybe would grab Giles' attention easier, which obviously didn't happen. She ended up cutting her hair because she found out that he was already promised to another person. So that's when she made that decision. And then the fact that she reveals that Mrs. Charmant's hair
Mhm.
is not really hers. And then that's why the doctor decides to break up things with her, even though he was already tired of her anyway. But
Mhm.
that's the turning point. Okay, this doesn't work anymore. So the fact that that simple action caused so many things in between is just fascinating to me. Um, so I'm not sure what's the meaning of her hair. I guess it's what sets up the story. If
Mhm.
she hadn't cut her hair, maybe none of this would have happened, which is a bit crazy to think about, but probably not. Talk about the butterfly effect here. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
to me, it was also partly about deception
mhm,
because, of course, like a poor person gives something to a rich person.
yeah.
I mean, she gets money once, but what Mrs. Charmant gets is a lover, a fantasy. And I think there's a quote, which, of course, I didn't underline because I have two tabs, but something about the fact that between the Doctor and Mrs. Charmant, their relationship was like a fantasy or
Mhm.
only existent in a fantasy, something like that. And I felt like that was also part of deception, and that she took and took from people from a different class, and
Mhm.
then the hair
True.
was what created that fantasy.
That's very
And
true.
I also feel like the way that Giles looked towards Grace was also a fantasy, and it
Definitely. Yeah.
and whole Mr. Hall, wow, Mr. Melbury's whole um, thing was all one big fantasy, and just people fantasizing of being part of a different class, which I think is also the sole reason that the Doctor likes Mrs. Charmant
Mhm.
in any way.
Mhm.
Um, so to
Yeah.
me, the hair was kind of about deception and about a fantasy that's not
Yeah.
real.
Exactly. I feel like the only person, ironically, who did love someone genuinely for who he was Marty towards Giles. And I feel like her cutting her hair is also her giving up a possible future and happiness with him in order for him to be happy, which is very sad. So that also represented
Why
that
would
to me. Like,
you say that, Mary? Please
I
don't.
mean, isn't it true though? Which is very sad, but I feel like it is. Like, as soon as she heard that he would probably be with someone else, she was like, "Oh, okay then, there you go. You can have it," because I have nothing else to fight for, I guess, and that's very sad. Um, but yeah, I feel like that's what happened. So yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, I didn't know I liked Marty this much.
I definitely liked her a lot. Yeah.
I have it a lot with, I think, people, more working class people in Victorian novels. I don't know if you remember the narrator, or not the narrator, but the housekeeper of the narrator in Wuthering Heights, which
Yeah.
I loved her so much as well, even though she doesn't really have, or she has the ultimate voice in Wuthering Heights. That's of course debatable.
Yes.
Um, but I believe I found a novel, a historical fiction novel. I'll take off my glasses. Um, about her perspective, that is written all from her perspective.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, I think it's literally Nell's story. I saved it on Goodreads, but that just sounds amazing.
What? Yes, we need to read that. What?
My
That's
first thought is let's read it with the whimsical readers book club, but then Lucy hates Wuthering Heights, so I don't
maybe
know.
she would like that perspective. Who knows?
Know if I get to pick again, like what, in 8 months, so we'll see.
That's like watching Downton Abbey from the perspective of, I don't know, Daisy or something.
Really?
I would love that. I would love that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The last question is, what other
Ooh.
Victorian novels did this book remind you of? And if you're watching this back, then please leave a comment, because it reminded me of so many things and I'm so curious what it
Ooh, okay.
reminded all of
Then
you about.
do tell, please. I would love to hear your comparison. I didn't think
Strangely,
about this a lot, but I can try. Yeah.
it reminded me of two books. First, Shirley by Charlotte Bronte,
Oh,
and secondly, Middlemarch by George Eliot. Which
Okay.
Middlemarch, I think mainly because of the location and because we
Mhm.
have a lot of different people from a different class in the same location. Um, and we have the unlikable character is Rosamund from Middlemarch. I'm so bad at names,
Oh, I
but
don't
I think
remember.
so. And I think she is a more unlikable version of Grace in a way, and at
Mm.
least in the way that she's written a little bit. So it reminded me of Middlemarch in that way. And I expected to get more Shirley with the two female characters. So I thought we would get a Marty and Grace like plotline, which we
Mm.
kind of got, but not really. And that reminded me of Shirley, which I didn't love, and neither did you. Um,
Oh no. No, I
no.
didn't.
But those two novels, like If I'm Looking Beyond Thomas Hardy,
Mm.
um, kind of made me feel like I recognized some things in
Yeah.
Woodlanders.
Yeah, Middlemarch, you're absolutely right. Especially due to the small setting, small town setting where the novel is sometimes very slow, but so much happens because you're just following people's lives, and people's lives can get very messy, especially when they prioritize the wrong things or mingle too much in each other's business. It can
Mhm.
get very messy. So that's a good comparison for sure. With Shirley, I have to say I don't remember a lot because I kind of forgot everything about that book after finishing
Yeah,
it. Uh, yeah, yeah. Sadly, we didn't get the two female perspectives, which is so funny because I remember when we first started reading the book, we were wondering like, who is this Marty? What's her play gonna be? What's
yeah,
happening? And then we were wondering, oh, there's a new character coming. Who is this Grace? She
yes.
probably
I
will not
remember.
matter. She doesn't
No,
matter.
we thought the book would be about Marty. Yes.
I know, and it
Yeah.
kind of is. Except she's barely in it, but it kind of
In our
is.
hearts.
In our hearts, yeah. Exactly. Oh.
And let me see. What did you think of the disastrous? Oh my god.
Okay, can I confess something before you go on? Because they were mentioning animals and such, I kind of skimmed through those scenes because I was not sure
Mm,
if something was gonna be said to trigger me.
no,
So kind of no. Okay,
no,
then
it wasn't.
please do tell what happened.
Well, they were eating on plates and they were eating lettuce, and there was a snail in Grace her lettuce. And that was like
Oh
kind of
no.
I think that is why people say that she looked down at Giles, because it's very normal, I think, if you eat a lot of greens, that there is maybe a bug. I mean, a
Yes.
snail that I had at one time was disgusting. Um, so I get her, but her reaction was very physical
Mm.
to seeing that snail, and that is kind of where she decided that she could not live like that.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Yeah. Mm. I see that.
yeah,
Okay.
almost. I remember there was a snail in a cauliflower I bought once, like a really big one, and there were two snails,
Two
and
snails?
I got it in the supermarket, and I was like,
Oh,
oh.
poor things. They probably wanted to be out there in the wild and they're just in your food.
Well, I hope they had a party in my compost because I did not eat that cauliflower.
Oh god. Wow. What a fun scene. Maybe I need
Yes,
to get back and read it if you think
I mean,
it's
I
safe.
cannot promise that there is nothing
Mm,
that you wouldn't like in there, but
yeah.
if I read something and I know we're reading it together, then I always
I
warn
know
you.
you're very kind, but yeah, those scenes usually I just skim. There was also a scene with the fox, and they were talking about hunting, and I was like, no, skip,
Uh,
skip 2 or 3 pages. I
yeah, I mean,
wasn't very, yeah. Mm.
Victorian novels are brutal when it comes to animals.
I know. That's why I was like, no. I'm sure I will not miss anything important in 2 or 3 pages, so let's just skip that, please.
I mean,
Um,
I feel like if you mentioned the Goodreads reviews of people saying that she looked down on Giles, and I think that was a really pivotal moment in forming an
mm,
opinion on Grace. But
mm,
yeah, I agree with you that sometimes you just need to skip parts.
yeah, yeah. But if you say it's safe, then I might go back
So,
and try to read it. Yeah.
yeah, Chris, I mentioned that to Mary, and she didn't read it either. So
No, no, I didn't. It's too much. I do not want it.
no, I feel
No.
like I'm usually fine. If it's fictional and it's not on the screen, then I'm fine.
Yeah.
No.
I'm happy you are, because this way you can warn me. Thank you so much.
Also, our next read is going to be a book that's behind me. That is The
Oh, I have
Return.
it.
You have it?
I have
Ooh.
it. I came prepared.
Feels like a judgment, Mary.
Some people didn't, but that's fine.
We're going to read The Return of the Native, which I feel like we should make a timeline of when he wrote things, because I have no idea which ones he wrote first.
Oh, I don't know either. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to look that up.
I'm going to ask Google and I will know within 30 seconds.
That's probably a good idea. Why am I looking for a chronology here? It probably doesn't have one. Anyway, I don't know. We'll just
No,
have
but we're
to.
going to read that one, and that's almost going to be our orphan pick, so we will discuss that somewhere in January. So you have a lot of time. Why are you laughing?
I love it. It's for autumn, so it will be in January, okay? Not before
No,
that.
but the autumn ends in December, right?
In November. But sure, but it will not
Oh,
be.
does it?
I think so.
Oh, wow. Like,
Or
I've done dumb things on the internet, but I feel like this is going to be
wait.
a part of
Or maybe I'm being dumb. I'm not sure now.
I don't know.
It's
So,
fine.
yes, we are both millennials, which means that we are past the age of 28 and we don't know when the autumn ends.
Oh my
I feel
god.
like this is the result of growing up with Google.
Wait,
Oh,
or
you
is
are
it
right.
just-
Why did I think that Christmas was in the autumn?
That's what I was
Wow.
gonna say next. I was gonna say, I mean, at least in December, because Christmas is not during autumn, so
Yeah.
that's not
Well,
all.
I have learned so much today. I mean, a little bit about a book, but also this pivotal information.
When perfect. Either way, you're probably right though, because when would I guess maybe start of December.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to discuss it early December.
Perfect. So you
Yeah.
have a lot of time.
Yes. So I'm going to edit this part of the live show.
That's totally fine. Don't worry. We all make mistakes. It's okay. It's
Oh, yes.
oh,
Okay, I will just say that it's a cultural thing that I didn't know. It's very, very cultural.
it's definitely. I mean, autumn hasn't started yet in Portugal, so it's definitely cultural. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, yeah. No, no dumb people here. But thank you so much, Mary, for
Of
joining
course.
the live
Thank
show, and
you.
for Martin and Chris for being here and commenting. Thank you
Yes.
so much. That's really lovely.
Yeah.
And we will speak to you very soon. Thank you so much, Martin. I
Thank
hope you enjoy your outfit as
you.
well. And now I have to click the right button. And we will see you, I think, for some reading sprints, probably.
Yes.
We'll do that somewhere in the winter in April. So,
Oh my god. Oh, anyway.
all right. Bye, everyone.